Hello. So Matthew Sherling sent me a bunch of Cutty spot questions, and I'm going to answer them right now. Full disclosure: this is not my first attempt. I've done it. This is like the third try, and I keep going on too long. So I'm going to try to be really on point and keep it bearable. Um, Thank you, Matthew, for sending me these, and thank you just anyone who is watching. Like, I really appreciate it. Okay, let's go. 1. Hi, who are you? I'm Bob Schofield. Hello. Um, I write things and draw things and make comics and poetry. I write poetry, I guess. I illustrate the poems. I do things with words and pictures. Is I guess the simplest answer. I'm trying to figure it out, I guess, as I go along. 2. Were you interested in writing or illustrating first? I've always kind of done both. I think there's a glare, so I'm going to take these off. Yeah, I've always done both. But I guess illustrating technically first, just like for developmental reasons. You know, like when you're a baby, you can pretty much just wrap your pudgy, shitty baby fingers around a crayon and just start going to town on some scrap paper. Writing and reading, that doesn't happen until, I mean, you can't do it until you're like 5 or something. And then writing for fun, that doesn't happen until you're maybe, like 10 or 11, unless you're some weird, like, Mozart prodigy. You can just write and like right off the bat. So yeah, I guess illustrating technically. 3. Is there anyone who I'm sorry that I'm squinting. I can't read without my glasses. Yeah. Is there anyone who particularly inspires you with the exploration of text and image together? There's a lot of really good cartoonists out there in the world. So I make a webcomic, and I started doing that because I read this other webcomic that really inspired me, and it's called A Lesson is Learned, but the Damage is Irreversible. It's amazing. If anyone doesn't know about it, they should open up another tab right now and go to alessonislearned.com. It's an amazing webcomic. It's kind of like, I don't know if anyone can relate. It's like that thing where you discover something and you've always wanted to make it yourself. Like it's the thing that you've always wanted to do and didn't even know it, and you discover it. That's what discovering that comic was like for me. And so, yeah, I found this comic and they had stopped making it. I was like, I need to do something like this. This is amazing. So that's what got me making comics. And anyone else that inspires me? Well, there's a guy named Scott McCloud. I had his book somewhere. Yeah, here. He wrote this book called Understanding Comics, which is a great book. It's pretty famous. I don't know if anyone knows about it. It kind of just talks about the language of comics and how comics work, and kind of like what your brain is doing when it's reading comics, which I think is very similar actually to what your brain does when it's reading poetry. Kind of just connecting dots and filling in holes, and it's a more active medium for the reader. But yeah, his book is great. Other people that inspired me, I really like. I mean, this doesn't really have to do with text and image, but I like Joseph Cornell, the dude with the weird surrealist boxes. That guy's cool. I like that idea of like a space, or just a physical space full of a little world, like this little. I guess that's. I don't know. That's probably what I'm trying to do with all my stuff. Like make these little worlds on the internet. The internet is like a space to me. I think of it as just this little universe, this little closet I can open up and peek my head into. And that's kind of what I'm doing, I guess. Anyone else? I think that's it. Oh, well, one more thing. I do get a lot of inspiration from video games, like game developers. Not like super big budget ones where you just murder people. Like those are fucking shitty. Um, but there's a lot of really cool indie games out there in the world, and I've like listened to lectures and talks or whatever on YouTube from certain game developers, and that was really interesting to me. It kind of keyed me into some thing like I think it's really important as a writer or just anybody to respect your reader or your audience or what have you. Like, it's a big deal for me to not waste people's time and to not treat them like they're stupid. Because, I mean, in this day and age, there's so many distractions in the world, So for a person to take time out of their day and spend it with whatever fucking bullshit I made, like, that's huge. That's a really big deal to me. And I want to give them something that's rewarding and that they can enjoy and kind of, like, get something out of, hopefully. And that's kind of a big deal with game design, and that kind of walking that line where you kind of coax them in. You don't want to make something too difficult or too, create a barrier for entry, but you don't want to just spoon feed them. That's like a big deal with game design. That's kind of what it's about, really. That's or the art of it is kind of balancing that. Jonathan Blow is this dude who he made the game Braid. I don't know if anyone's played that game, but and actually that webcomic I mentioned a little while ago, A Lessons Learned by the Damage is Irreversible, the artist in that did the art for Braid. But anyway, Jonathan Blow is the game developer who made the game Braid, and he has a lot of interesting talks on YouTube and like interviews and stuff. And his ideas about that reciprocal relationship between the player and the game, I think, it informs how I go about dealing with the relationship between reader and writer. Yeah. Okay. I think that's enough with that question. On to the next one. 4. How would you describe your process when making an ebook? That was a little difficult because I made one, and now I'm making another one. I think, though, I could say with some certainty that what I like is I like having a structure, like a big conceptual idea that will kind of carry me through it. I like that. I like, systems and patterns and formulas, even though formula sounds like a dirty word. But yeah. I like it. You know what? Okay, I like it for 2 reasons. This is why I like it. One, it makes things easier for me because I can kind of lean on the structure and have faith in the structure and know that the structure will carry me through. Like, if it's a good idea, I know that I can just plug things into the structure and let it kind of take care of itself. Almost like a computer program or something. I don't know anything about computers, but that's what it feels like. Like, I can just let the thing kind of take care of itself and not have to tear my head out about like where a plot is going or anything like that. And then 2, I think it's interesting for the reader because, well, I'm not really interested in plot or character, and I don't really put those in my things. But I do think that the reader needs something to hold on to, which I guess is going back to that idea I was talking about, like respecting the reader. I need to give him something to guide him through it. And so with these structures and these patterns, I think it creates a thing kind of like music, where I don't know anything about computers. I don't know anything about music, so that metaphor might be garbage. But I think it's like music in that it creates like a rhythm, this pattern of repeated images / ideas or whatever, and then the reader can kind of tune into it, and they pick up on it pretty quick, I think, and they're like, all right, this is the pattern, this is what's going to happen, and as you go, I can start varying the pattern and plugging things in and switching things around, and it creates this kind of like dual reaction where on the one hand the reader is their expectations are met because they know the pattern, like, okay, this is how it goes, but then on the other hand their expectations are confounded because I'm just, I'm throwing out another weird thing or kind of altering the pattern in this way that is surprising. So it kind of is like they're always a little off footing, but they kind of know what's going on. That is ideal. That was kind of what I was trying to do, and I don't know. I hope it was successful. I think it worked. Um, okay, 5. Your work includes some surrealist sort of imagery. Is that conscious? I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is. I know what I'm doing. I'm making concrete decisions. I don't like wake up from an opium haze with a bunch of papers all over the place and I'm just like, where did this come from? That's not what's going on. At the same time, I feel weird saying is this conscious because like it's not like a gimmick. I'm not like I just don't know how to do anything else. I'm not like trying to fulfill some weirdness quota. You know, I've tried to write realist, stuff, and it's almost like painful to me. I don't know how to do it. Um, like my imagination, I guess I just have an overactive imagination, so it's always just butting into my life, my day-to-day activities, and like to try and silence it in order to conform to some idea of like realism. Uh, it'd be like gimping myself. It seems painful. Like it would it would almost be cruel, I think, because like my imagination is this huge part of who I am. That's like that is me. I am my imagination. So to silence it would be like it would be like the mental equivalent of like a '50s housewife being beaten by her husband or something. Like shut up, where's dinner? Like that. Like I am my imagination, and I have to respect it and give it space to breathe and to express itself. That sounds insane. Okay. Also, man, surrealism that's a big heavy word, right? Like it's got a lot of history behind it, and I don't know if I guess I do technically. Like if you just look at the stuff I make, it does fit in that mold. But I haven't read that much surrealism. I feel like there's this kind of contemporary crop of surrealists that I really like. They're great, like Zachary Schoenberg and Heather Crystal and Ben Myrov, and all those people. They're great. But I've only known about them for like a year or so. I don't know. And I've been writing like this forever, just not very well. um, so, you know, man, I'm gonna go back to video games again, but I think that like Super Mario 64 had more to do with me becoming a surrealist than any like an Andre Breton and a bunch of fucking dead French guys. That game was a big deal to me when I was like whatever, like 10 or something when it came out, and like I remember playing it at Toys R Us. They were like, they would have the console set up and you could just go up to a TV and play it. And I was like, blew my mind. I just remember like taking the controller in my hand and moving the little 3D Mario around and like jumping through the air and shit. And like you could just jump into a painting and you're in another universe and there's an island floating in the sky and you can shoot to it on a cannon and you can put on this hat where like wings come out of your head and you're flying around. Like, what the fuck? That was amazing. And I've probably been like hunting that level of like escapism or something ever since. I don't know. I don't know how to program, so I can't make video games and make little digital worlds, so I try to just make them with my hands, make them with words and pictures. I probably got some sort of fucked up God complex or something. I don't know. That word escapism is kind of tricky, I feel like, because I'm aware of it. Like I don't want to make it this just self-indulgent thing. I don't want it. Escapism is a dirty word, but the same. I feel like the critique of surrealism, where it's just pure escapism, is bullshit. That's ridiculous. But I am aware of like the pitfall of it becoming self-indulgent, and I try to counter that by making my imagery. I don't do this on purpose. It's probably just my personality, but I make the imagery as horrific and just fucked up as possible. I think like Kafka's my favorite writer, and I think he's a good example of this, where you're escaping into this fantasy world, but it's a nightmare. It's not fun. You don't want to be in Kafka's world, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place to see, even though it's horrific and trying to kill you. Alice in Wonderland too fits that mold. Like I think people forget how kind of cruel that book is, because it's been Disneyfied and remade it over and over again. But it's a pretty fucking grisly book. Like she's constantly just being berated by every single weird fantasy creature she encounters, because there's some weird breach of etiquette that doesn't make any sense and that she doesn't understand. And then at the end, the queen tries to cut her head off. Like, this was pretty fucking grisly. And I guess that's what I'm interested in. This going into making a world that is in some ways more horrific than our actual world, which is pretty hard to do, because you turn on the news and you're like, oh, the world around us is garbage. So, yeah. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to do. Anything else I have to say about surrealism? No. Yes, I like... one more thing. I thought of something else. I like the kind of puzzle aspect that surrealism provides. It's like a thing that you can kind of try and... It doesn't really make sense, right? Like, that's the idea I'm going for. I want to kind of throw the reader off at first, because the image doesn't make sense, or the line, or whatever, the poem doesn't make sense. But I do want you to get the impression that you can figure it out, or like have it be doing something. Like, this isn't I don't want it to be Mad Libs, where you just get a bunch of weird shit. That's not good surrealism to me. Good surrealism and good writing in general, you might not quite know what it's doing, especially at first, but you should feel like it's doing something. Like, you should hone in on the image and kind of carve away at it, or change it, or sculpt it, so that it, like, you don't know what it's doing, but it's doing something inside you. It's, like, affecting you in some way. And you can tell when it's doing that. If it's just just non sequitur garbage, it's just gonna wash over you, and it'll, like, and you'll just block it out, and it doesn't do anything. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's everything I have to say about surrealism. 6. How would you describe your relationship with the internet? Ambivalent. Pretty good, I guess, but a little ambivalent. There's a lot of shit to dislike about the internet, but you can just ignore it. So that's cool. What I like best about it is that it feels like I have my own little space on it. I've got my little, I've got my comic, and I can make my comic, and I've got my Tumblr, and I can put things on there, and I've got my little area, and I tend to my garden, and I can just ignore all the crap that bugs me. Sometimes I get the image, when I think about the internet, I get this idea of, like, I'm like a Zen monk or something, and I'm like raking sand, making a Zen garden, raking sand. And meanwhile, everything around me it's just a bunch of bullshit, like just super highways of 18-wheelers and deadlocked traffic and horns honking, and it's just chaos. But I've made my Zen garden, and I've got the walls of it are high enough that the bullshit doesn't affect me. I can maybe kind of just hear it below, just this ocean-like roar of distant bullshit, and that's how I feel about the internet. Like, I don't like social media, to be quite honest. Like, Facebook gives me anxiety. I'm bad at it. I don't like going on Facebook. When I'm on there and I see that row of green dots, I start just freaking out. It I don't know. It's I just feel weird. When I was in college and Facebook was first getting started, kind of just exploding for the first time, I was the fucking asshole who was like, no, I'm not getting one. Fuck Facebook. That was me. And then a few years later, I decided to make art on the internet, and so it was like, oh shit, I guess I need to do this. But yeah, Internet, what are you gonna do? 7. What's the first album you remember buying? I don't know. I think it was something probably like in middle school, like that. I think it was like that Blink 182 one with the nurse and a glove. You know what I'm talking about? Uh, yeah, it was probably that. It was definitely something that was shitty, and that Carson Daly said was cool on TV, and I was 11, and I believed him. All right. 8. What's your worldview in one sentence? Um, so I was thinking hard about this ever since I got these questions, and I think worldviews, man, they're weird, they're hard, but I mean they're like a necessary fiction to like get you, you know, through the day, get you through life. Um, but the world is a big, complicated place. It's hard. It's hard. So I think the only worldview that really makes sense to me is just like try harder, because you have no control over anything in life. Everything is so big and complicated. But the only thing you have control over is yourself and how you engage with the world. So just try harder. Try harder to engage with the world. I think unless you're a sociopath, you probably know how to be a good person. So try harder at being a good person. I'm trying really hard all the time, and I really suck. And I think that's all you can do, right? Just try hard at being good. Try harder at being a writer or artist or whatever the fuck you want to be. Just it's hard to be a human being, so we should all just try harder. So yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you, Matthew, for sending me these, and thank you anyone who was sitting through this 22 minutes. Okay, I'm okay with that, I think. Yeah, thank you, viewers. I'm so fucking sorry.